What just happened? Good morning. I hope my intros are playing for you guys because they've not been playing right for me. I don't even know. Am I live? I think I'm live. Hi, guys. Good morning. Good morning. How are my friends this morning? My computer's not cooperating. Okay. My eyes watering. Good morning. Good morning. Look, all my favorite people are here. Hi. Hi, Judy. Jennifer Juniper. Hello. Jill. In Peter Tragos's chat, they're calling him PETA. Like they're writing PETA instead of Peter. And he pronounces it PETA. And they're like, no. It's not like Peter Pan. It's not PETA, like British. It's PETA. And he can't say it right. Okay, let's see what Judy has for us today. Dang, my eye. You know, I go to the eye doctor in September. I'm going to ask her why this one eye just wants to like spew tears like Mount Vesuvius all the time. Just the left one. Just the left one. Okay, afterward, Judy, I'm assuming is after the second trial. Deputy DA Alan Jackson said afterward that the outcome sent a message. If you commit crimes against our citizens, we will follow you and prosecute you. I started to say persecute, not persecute, prosecute. If you commit crimes against our citizens, we will follow you and prosecute you. No matter whether you are famous or wealthy, you will stand trial. I find nothing tragic about Spector. Everything he did was intentional. Yes, absolutely. Spector made a short statement. The actions of the Hitler-like DA and his stormtrooper henchmen are reprehensible, unconscious, and despicable. Okay, then. Chill. Stormtrooper henchman? Insane, I think he is in my pet's Yoda. You know, stormtroopers came from World War II. And I did not know that when I watched Star Wars as a kid. I had no idea. I think if I had known that, the term stormtrooper might have been creepier. I wonder if George Lucas considered that when he used the term stormtrooper. Because stormtrooper to me is Star Wars, not World War II. But I wonder if older people that watch Star Wars was like, ew. Okay, let me see if I can get this blowhard. Oh yeah, we ended on he has to announce himself before he goes out the door, y'all. Did you hear him? Look out, I'm coming, world. He's so cute. Yeah, we ended on talking about dead bodies farting and burping and my little addition to the expert. Oh, where were we? No, that was Spike. Come on, y'all. I put Spike on a blue background. Because he's a boy. I think I did Belle on yellow. And Shadow on pink. I don't have my YouTube pulled up so I can check. I can't see the emojis on StreamYard.
Even during life is always passive.
Well,
we can, if we want to, we can inhale willingly and expire willingly, but by volition. But most of our breathing is not volitional, it's automatic.
I understand, but what I just did is in fact volitional, and I'm saying, all I'm asking you is, I don't want to overcomplicate this, doctor. Let's just stay simple. You're not suggesting that she coughed or sneezed or blew out air. You're saying that there was a passive reaction based on an intake of air coming out, correct? Passively.
She is putting out the contents of the airway and the mouth through a small orifice. That's what she's doing. Passively.
What orifice?
Passively, because all expiration, all...
What orifice? There was no orifice left. It's gone. I'm not going to get graphic, but y'all see what I'm saying, right? Like, okay.
There's other words I escape me for right now, but...
Exhalation?
You notice every time... Every time AJ makes a good point, it's just like Yuri Buchanan. Every time Jackson makes a good point, this dude forgets how to speak English.
It's just a bad... it'll come to me.
Doesn't matter. All I was asking is, was it passive?
That occurred.
All right, StreamYard, it's too early to start your mess now. I think I did yellow for Belle because I really like yellow. It's not my favorite, but it was my mom's favorite color. And so I did, because I have two girls, so I did pink for Shadow and blue for Spike for boy, and then I did yellow for Belle because I like yellow. My car's yellow. I have a yellow Mustang.
That can occur instantaneously or right after, and it can occur seconds or minutes after.
Okay. I didn't ask you anything about when it occurred. All I'm asking you, doctor, it's very simple. Is what you're describing passive? That's all I'm asking. Yes or no?
Yeah, it's passive.
Okay. That's all I wanted to know. You based that opinion that she may have expirated blood based on your review of some slides that indicated from Dr. Pena that there was slight hemorrhage in the alveoli. Yes?
No.
Grapes.
No, that's not what I'm basing that on.
You indicated yesterday that you were basing your opinion that she must have expirated blood on the fact that there was blood in the air sacs.
You're forgetting the other half. No, yes, there is, but you've only given me half of what I said.
I'm asking you for the basis of your opinion. You said that there was blood. Let's start with that, and then we'll move forward. Just answer my. Okay, what are the two things?
Actually, on what the description in the autopsy report where he makes the naked eye examination or the naked eye observations
of the air sacs.
No, you don't see air sacs on naked eye.
Okay, what do you see?
He describes under the segment where he describes the lung that there is what I think he's called aspirated blood in both lungs.
What, you indicate that he said it was aspirated blood?
That if I'm would you show me the autopsy report?
Be glad. Mary?
Yes.
If you pew yourself in the mouth, you're gonna have blood in your lungs. That's kind of a given, and you're not
Doctors under the microscope.
necessarily
No,
gonna breathe it into
the
your
naked eye
lungs.
examination.
Everything.
Yes.
You have two pipes side by side. Your breathing pipe and your food pipe. When you eat, there's a little flap that covers your breathing pipe, so food doesn't go down there. If you're gonna blow that all apart, everything's gonna be all squished together, and the blood is gonna go everywhere. So yes, you're gonna get blood in your lungs. You're not necessarily gonna have to breathe it into your lungs. Why is this a complicated question?
One place that I just happened to open on page 614. The visceral, that's VIS.
I'm not going to ask you to read it. That would be hearsay. What I'm asking you to do, if you wouldn't mind, and this is just a technical thing, just read it over to yourself
I did.
and then tell me the simple question again. I don't want to overcomplicate things. We're tending to overcomplicate things. Just tell me very quickly, very succinctly, what do you base your opinion on that she expirated blood?
I will tell you again what I told you yesterday, that there is extensive hemorrhage in the bottom, deepest portions of both lungs, as described on page 614 in.
Well, there we go. It's very apropos for a stormtrooper in Star Wars or anywhere. Makes sense. So good call, George Lucas. I was, how old was I when Star Wars came out? 7? So, and the first one I saw was Return of the Jedi in the theater. So, yeah, I just took it as Star Wars. It was always Star Wars. Well, yeah, you're too young, Jill. Which one did you watch first, though? If you watch them in the original order, you always hated stormtroopers. If you watch the original trilogy and then the prequel trilogy, you never trusted the stormtrooper or the clone troopers. Like, you knew they were going to go bad at some point.
In the autopsy report, and also described elsewhere in the autopsy report, but this is a good description.
All right.
And then it describes it again in the microscopic examination.
Okay, and again, those.
Hang
on a second, let me ask you a question.
No, excuse me, but you asked him what he's basing his opinion on. So now he's got to be allowed to explain what he's basing it on.
Sure.
Like my stepdaughters, they feel sorry for Darth Vader because he has such a tragic backstory. So what?
Just don't want to get off the field. I'm sorry.
Well, I don't think it is off field at this point. Go ahead.
In the microscopic examination, which is the examination of tissue that you took out from those areas that you described with the naked eye, and had the technician prepare slides, where he examined under the microscope, and he describes there that there is hemorrhage within the air sacs in those areas described earlier. There's no indication of slight, like you indicated earlier. There's no indication of anything other by the description of this being a large amount of blood in the bottom portion of the lungs.
Did you ever talk to Dr. Pena?
No, I did not. I don't remember if I talked to him or not. I don't think I did.
You looked at the slides though, correct?
I did look at the slides.
All right, what you just described to the jurors, let's put this in English. You've described to the jurors a couple of different ways that Dr. Pena looked at the lungs, one visually, grossly, and one, he took a sample and looked at it under a slide. And what was looked at under the slide was the alveoli, yes?
Well, it would be
air
lung
sacs.
tissue, which includes the air sacs, the alveoli.
Thing. And when it all boils down to the English interpretation, if you will, as opposed to the medical, you're basing your opinion on the fact that there was blood in the air sacs, correct?
Yeah, but not only there's blood in the air sacs, there is a lot of blood in the air sacs taking up large areas.
Okay. Now, let me use the Elmo. I'm going to mark a couple of things real quick.
Okay.
So this isn't completely.
Your next is 166.
166. I'll place a 166 on the bottom right-hand corner of the first document and a P167 on the second document. We might actually be able to put these up at the same time. Well, 166 looks like this. It's coming into focus.
It's a diagram of the lung and the interior of the lung.
And this one's pink. There's a second diagram that's the same, that a little bit more detailed, but
Okay.
basically the same thing. That may be a little bit crude and rudimentary, but it may serve our purposes, Doctor, for our discussion. This is a diagram, a drawn diagram of a couple of lungs, right?
Yes.
All right. And then there's a highlighted section, as a matter of fact, the section right here that indicates, I think it was what you were, the alveoli, the grapes, right?
Well, I've seen better pictures, but this is okay.
All right, but the jurors can understand it. Those are the air sacs, right?
Yes.
And they're tiny. I mean, obviously that's an inset.
The air sacs, to make it simple, are the little sacs where the oxygen is taken up from the air that we breathe at the very bottom of the
branches.
lung structure.
I understand. Let me move on to a different question. You indicated yesterday and today that you believe that there may have been expirated blood, in part due to what you saw in the air sacs, the blood that you saw in the air sacs. Correct?
Yes, as a result of an expulsion of fluids from the mouth after the shot. Sometime after the shot.
Okay.
I don't know when, but
Doctor,
as I
do me a
said,
favor, Doctor, listen to my question. You may have answered it with the first syllable. I'm not asking for an explanation. You are basing your opinion that there may have been expirated blood on the fact or facts of the existence of blood in the lungs. Correct?
well, not only, but that's obviously you need the source in order for that to happen.
Mr. Plord asked you yesterday, did you find anything physically to support your conclusion that she may have expirated blood? And you said, yes, physically, I saw blood in the lungs.
Exactly.
All right. Now, you left out yesterday the other explanation for how blood could get in those air sacs, didn't you?
I don't know what that is.
All right. Lana Clarkson was generally upright after she was killed. Yes?
But she was like you showed her in the picture just a little while ago.
And that would be upright. In other words, her head is above her feet. Actually, her head is above her shoulders, which is above her torso. which is above her hips, which is above her knees, which is above her feet. Basically on
She was exactly as shown on the picture,
I realize
with
that.
her head to, I think, the left side.
Okay. What I'm asking you is, she was generally upright, yes or no?
Yes, she was like shown in the picture.
Which is generally
That's upright, that's upright.
All right, fine.
Upright, I consider somebody standing up, but if you ask me how she was just like the jury would have seen and judged her position based on the picture.
What happens to the esophagus, the vocal cords, the internal mechanisms? What happens to those after her spine was transected? Do they remain taut and tight, or do they become flaccid?
The esophagus is a muscle, and it probably will be relaxed. It's always closed unless you swallow, and probably would be halfway closed, but not directly open.
All right.
The
Basically,
esophagus is a soft, muscular tube, and when it's not used, it just tends to
relax.
relax, but there would be a passage in it if I put a probe through it, but otherwise, technically, it's shut.
Actually, the reality is, once it relaxes and becomes flaccid, it opens. Isn't that true?
The esophagus?
The esophagus, the vocal cords, the airways, they all just relax
No,
and
the
become
vocal cords
flaccid.
don't open. The vocal cords are inside of the voice box, and the voice box, as you know, if you touch your own voice box, it's gristle, and there's no, the gristle holds it at all times at a certain caliber.
She was shot in the back of the throat, correct?
Yes,
I mean, that's a very general description, but it was the back of the throat.
yes.
She would have bled from the back of the throat, correct?
She what?
She would have bled
Yes.
from the back of the throat.
Right.
Even after death, the bleeding, some bleeding would continue down the back of the throat. Correct?
Well, it would continue, some of it down the back of the throat,
Right.
some of it into the mouth. It would go where the point of least resistance is.
And of course, gravity would pull the blood down the back of the throat and some of that blood into the esophageal passage, correct?
Well, I did not see any mention of blood down the esophagus in the autopsy report.
And in fact, it would go down into the airways as well, correct? Just by gravity. I mean, it's just liquid blood flowing into the airways. She's dead. She's not moving.
It would go into, yes, some of it would go into the upper airway.
And some of that blood would go into the primary bronchial tubes, correct?
You mean the main airways?
Correct.
Less.
Some of it would go into the secondary bronchial tubes.
I would put a maybe on that.
Some of it would go into the tertiary bronchial tubes.
No,
And of course, connected to the tertiary bronchial tubes are what?
are the alveoli.
Yeah.
They do not go into the alveoli. I described all that the other day.
I'm asking you right now, I'm not worried about what you described the other day, doctor. I'm asking you right now, based on just static bleeding, some of that blood that she's bleeding from the back of the throat would, by gravity, be drawn down into the throat, drawn down into the air passages, down into the lungs, and would certainly seep down into the alveoli.
No, that's not what happens.
In fact, isn't it true? Are you sure about that?
I'm sure of that, yes.
All right, and you believe that in the medical community, the forensic science community, that others would agree with you?
You know, I don't know. I didn't make a poll of who does and who doesn't, but I can tell you that in my experience with a fair number of autopsies that I've done over time, and with a lot of trauma cases, in order for blood to occur in quantities in the bottom portion of the lung, in the air sacs, on both sides of the lung, that will not happen by gravity.
And in fact, isn't it true, doctor, that Lana Clarkson remained in that position that we saw, with blood draining from the back of her throat, down into the air passages, into the primary, the secondary, the tertiary bronchi, all the way down into the alveoli for 12 hours before she was moved. Isn't that true?
No.
12 hours.
No, you made up my testimony, and
You don't agree with that?
no,
You
I
can say,
don't
"No,
agree.
don't."
It discouraged you from saying that it goes down the tertiary bronchioles earlier. I agree that some of it will go down the upper airway, but it will not go down all the way down into the end of the lung, almost to the air sacs, and then, like you said earlier, into the air sacs. It does not do that by gravity.
She was in that position for some 12
I don't care in
hours.
what position she is.
Doctor, I'm not arguing with you. I'm going to ask you kindly not to argue with me. Okay?
No, I don't argue with you, but
Doctor,
don't
there's
put
no-
words
there's
in
no
my mouth.
question.
Gentlemen, doctor, what you need to do is just listen to the question. You can agree with it, disagree. If an explanation is necessary, I'll allow you to do that. Allow him to ask his question. Go ahead and ask the question.
Are you aware that she remained in that position that we saw in the photograph for 12 hours?
Of course, because that's how the picture was taken.
Now, you indicated, Doctor, that there was certain physical evidence. I think that was the answer to a question by Mr. Poor, that there was certain physical evidence that convinced you that Lana Clarkson fired the weapon. Yes?
Yes.
Tell the jurors what that physical evidence is. What is that evidence?
She had gunpowder on her hands.
It's a
She had
GSR.
I'm sorry?
What you're calling GSR?
Yes.
Okay.
She had blood on her hands. She had tissue on her clothes. She had on her sleeves. She had well, primarily she had a gunshot wound in the mouth, intraoral gunshot wound.
Muted too. I
And
forgot
those
about
other
Turtle Boy's trial.
manifestation that I indicated. And there is no one else that meets those qualifications that I'm aware of.
Okay.
His brother,
So
Joe.
if I get your testimony correct, Doctor, the physical evidence that you base your opinion on that she fired the weapon is blood on her hands. I'm sorry, let's start at the beginning. GSR, blood on her hands, tissue on her sleeves, and intraoral, and the fact that it was an intraoral gunshot wound. Yes? Those are the four
Yes.
things you just told us. All right, let's start with the last one first. Intraoral gunshot wound, that's not physical evidence. That has nothing to do with anything, right?
Well, it calls,
Excuse me, he's asking a question. The objection is overruled.
The intraoral nature of the gunshot wound is not physical evidence, so we can dispose of that one for this discussion, correct?
I don't know, why is this not physical evidence?
The fact that a statistic that you're using, Doctor, most people are right-handed, correct?
I am not using statistics.
But you indicated that it's the fact that it's an intraoral gunshot wound is a physical item of evidence that shows that she pulled the trigger. Is that what you're saying?
Well, if you call that statistics, so be it, because yes, she would have fired the gun in her own mouth more likely than somebody else would have done that.
Okay.
Much more likely. I mean, when we talk about in excess of 99%, we talk about a substantial prevalence of suicide or self-inflicted wounds when they occur in the mouth.
Right, but of course, you conceded yesterday that there are some intraoral gunshot wounds that are homicides, where somebody else puts the gun in the mouth and fires. You're aware of those, right?
I'm not suggesting that that's not possible.
Okay.
I'm just suggesting to you that that's extremely rare.
Okay, so that is in fact not physical evidence that you rely on to make a determination that she actually had her finger on the trigger. That's what I'm asking about, all right? But the blood spatter, the tissue, and the GSR is, correct?
No, I disagree with that.
Well, I'm just repeating what you just said. You said there were four things that are physical
No,
evidence.
I disagree with that. The fact that there is a intraoral gunshot wound, first and foremost, suggests a self-inflicted wound. I don't stop there. I look for other information.
I'm asking-
And when all the information meets, then that becomes scientific evidence.
I'm asking you, doctor, we can do this all day long. I'm asking you very specifically. What is the physical evidence that you relied on? This is based on.
If he had said that in front of Bev, she would have had a heart attack. Found these at Publix. They're Dole Whips. They have them in strawberry too, but these were originally, you could only get them at Disney World. And they taste exactly like the ones at Disney World. Pineapple is the original flavor. They are wonderful. Except when you get them at Disney World, they're giant. But if you guys have a Publix and they have Dole Whips, you got to get them. They're amazing.
Mr. Plord's question yesterday. Very simple. What is the physical evidence that you relied on that leads you to conclude that her finger was on the trigger at the time of discharge? And you gave me 4 things. GSR on her hands, blood on her hands, tissue on her sleeves, and then you threw in intraoral gunshot wound. All I'm saying is,
And
isn't
for
it
one
true?
more, there's another one.
Okay,
I'd put that in too. But there's no one else that qualifies.
okay. And that, of course, is not physical evidence either. That's a conclusion. I'm asking for physical evidence, doctor.
I'm trying, I know what
For a second, just to move this forward, do you consider the fact that no one else qualifies to be physical evidence? In your mind, just yes or no?
yes, I think I
Okay.
do.
Do you consider the fact that it was an intraoral gunshot wound in your mind to be physical evidence?
Yes, I do.
All right, now we can move forward.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification, Your Honor. All right, let's talk about that physical evidence. Starting with the blood on her hands. You're aware that Jamie Lintemoot is the criminalist who saw and noted the blood on her hands,
Yes.
correct? You're aware that she testified that the blood was on her right wrist, high velocity, what she considered to be high velocity backspatter was on her right wrist in this area that I'm pointing to here, and on her left wrist in this area that I'm pointing to here, correct?
Okay.
I think by the use of the qualifiers that the objection is sustained, and we're going to take our recess at this time. Ladies and gentlemen, keep in mind the admonition, 15 minutes. Thank you. Bless you.
I didn't have the next portion ready to go. Okay, let's face it. I just wasn't ready. I'm not going to make any excuses. I'm extremely scattered, more than usual this morning. I don't know why. Can we just please play the clip? Play it.
All right. All parties are present. Jurors, alternates, and the witness, you may proceed.
I'm about to ask you a couple of questions about the blood on Lana Clarkson's hands. You're aware that Jamie Lintemoot testified that the blood that she saw, she did
But StreamYard, everything was going so good. Why did you shut me down?
the source of the blood, correct?
Well, yes, I suppose so.
Somehow with the back of her wrists facing her mouth, correct?
Well, probably that is one of several ways in which you could have held her hands.
Okay. You also indicated that there were items of evidence considered sheep, correct? That the right sleeve was due to blood flow, correct?
Objection, that mistake.
StreamYard, this is not funny.
And the left sleeve of the jacket, including part of the left lapel, soaking through to the left portion of the jacket. Some 12 or 14 hours after, not give us really any insight into the actual spattering event either, would it?
Any contamination is objectionable.
Okay.
And I understand that there was what is called purge when the body was turned over.
Right.
Where a large amount of blood came out from the mouth.
That's what I'm referring to.
But I understand that. But I fail to understand how that would also contaminate the area with tissue. The reason is that there was tissue on both shoulders, and that blood contaminated the left shoulder subsequently.
GSR. You indicated that items of evidence that you considered in making a determination that Lana Clarkson may have fired the weapon herself, correct?
Yes.
There was an exhibit, and could I take just a second, Your Honor?
Yes.
I impose on y'all to, or actually, we would have it.
Oh, sorry.
Do you have FF
Your dog's in your head. You getting a brain freeze? You getting a brain freeze? Is that what you're getting in your head?
By the way, ladies and gentlemen, while we have this moment, something, it just occurred to me, and I know you see it, and I hope that the attorneys, how professional they are, that they try to help each other with exhibits, because it serves everyone's interest in the end. And you don't see that in every trial. So I hope you appreciate how it is to see and how commendable the attorneys are for doing that. You're welcome.
Dude. Quit being rude.
Could you hold on for just 1 second, Mr. Jackson? I just want to.
The exhibit.
Oh, Judy, it is so good. It's like a sorbet, kind of. It is so good. And when I saw them in Publix the other day, I just about made a scene. I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Travis is like, what? I'm freaking out.
SR and some gun particle material coming out of a revolver after it's been fired.
I couldn't hear.
This photograph, Defense GG, shows GSR and gunpowder material coming out of a revolver after it's been fired, or at the point at which it's being fired, correct?
Yes, that's out of my book.
Okay. You're aware that
Let me just, while this is on the screen, point out to you that the white streaks are on fire.
Right.
That's why you see them.
I understand.
And they twirl around and go in different directions.
I understand. Thank you. The cloud of smoke, if you will, goes all the way out of the frame of the picture. It's around here, but it also goes all the way back and out of the picture, correct? To the right.
Yes, but some of it is because the gun also moved
Right.
as a result of recoil.
Right. The hand that's firing the weapon is in or beneath that entire cloud, correct?
Right.
All right. Also, there's a cloud in front of the hand up toward the cylinder area, correct?
Yes.
All right. The victim in this case, or Lana Clarkson in this case, was actually shot in the surrounding her face would have
Good Lord. Come on, Court TV. Now, I was bragging on Court TV yesterday how much better stream making a liar out of me.
cylinder gap here, correct?
There's a cylinder gap, but most all that smoke there is not from a cylinder gap.
You indicated that, well, let me just ask it this way. There would be some GSR expected outside her mouth in the environment of the gunshot, correct?
Possibly, that depends. That depends on the weapon. That depends on the gun.
Well,
some guns have more, some guns have less.
I'm not talking hypothetically. I'm talking in this case. And she had GSR on her hands.
She did have.
So by definition, there had to be some GSR around the gun, correct?
Well, no doubt.
Okay, and that GSR forms a cloud. I mean, it's amorphous.
Yes, but not this amount of smoke is not all from the cylinder cap.
That's not what I'm asking. I'm just saying that there is some GSR that's going to be surrounding that gunfire, correct?
Yes.
All right. And for instance, in this photograph, you would expect that the frame of the weapon would have GSR on it, correct?
I don't know. I don't deal with that. I don't deal with where that would settle examining firearms. I'm not a firearms examiner.
I understand that, but you're using
you're
GSR and the
like
existence of
you are.
GSR on Lana Clarkson's hands as a physical property to opine that she must have pulled the trigger, correct?
That is what I'm using in my opinion,
Okay.
but not about whether smoke on this part of the firearm.
Well, you're saying
I don't know how much of this particular smoke in this picture with this firearm, which is, by the way, a 32 caliber ramshackle firearm. It's not a very good one. It's one of those that you call snipes. So I don't know how much leakage there is in the firearm to be such that it's suitable. One that I would use to say, oh, this is all or most of it or 95% or 50% due to cylinder gap leakage. That's not what I'm saying.
And I'm not asking you that, Doctor. We're getting off on a tangential road. I'm simply asking, would you expect the GSR that you see in this photograph, the gun is right in the middle of it. You'd expect the gun would have GSR on it, correct?
In this case, yes.
You would expect that his hand would have GSR on it, correct?
In this case, probably, yes.
You would expect that that looks like a bag, maybe a sandbag that he's
that is a
steady-
sandbag.
Okay. The sandbag will have GSR on it because this cloud will settle down on that, correct?
Yes.
I mean, that's the nature of GSR, this amorphous cloud. It comes out and then begins to settle, correct?
Yes.
All right, and it surrounds the area of the fired weapon, correct?
It's around the area of the weapon.
So in this,
It's around, sometimes it does more, sometimes it does less. That depends on the weapon.
in this case, Doctor, if by definition, the gun would necessarily get GSR on it, correct?
Whereas that is probably so.
All right.
I do not want to have said that I can tell you to what extent that does occur.
So if she had her hands up, for instance, as I have my hands, or if she had her hands on someone else's arm, holding their wrist, for instance, who might be holding the gun in her mouth, that would, by definition, put her hands in the environment of gunshot residue, wouldn't it?
The suspect's not that.
Overruled. Well, that depends also to some extent, I would think. As again, I'm not a firearms expert, a firearms examiner. Where on the hand the GSR is it on the front, is it on the back? I would assume that that has some significance.
Taken from all over, from the back of both, and the webbing area of both Lana Clarkson's right and left hands. That would be consistent with her hands, for instance, being up in a defensive position and getting GSR on them that way as well, correct?
Well, my immediate question would be, you showed me the back that it was taken. Was it taken from the front too? I would have to, in order to attribute significance to that, I would have to know what there was on both sides.
Well,
Because the fact that there is GSR on the back is not unexpected. But if there are on the front, that would be unexpected.
Well, so you opined just a few minutes ago that the existence of GSR on her hands is one of the reasons that in your opinion, her finger was on the trigger, her thumb was on the trigger, yet you're telling this jury that you don't even know where the GSR was taken from her hands.
I know that it was taken from the back, but you are bringing up another theory to this case.
What-
You are showing me this.
Correct. And I'm asking you, is that consistent? If a GSR sample was taken from the webbing of her finger, thumb and forefinger, and on the back, and it showed GSR, that would be consistent with her having her hands up in the area of the fired gun, correct?
Only if you do a complete job. If you don't do a complete, if you only do half a job, it's consistent. But the other half of the job maybe make it inconsistent.
Is it consistent or not with her hands being up in a defensive position?
It's consistent as long as you only do half the job.
I don't understand your answer. Explain what you
Well,
mean.
the answer is that in order to make it consistent, you would, if she is like that, you would want to know what the other side of the palm has.
But let's you have consistent with her hands being in the environment of gunshot.
Hands are, the finding would be consistent with the hands being in the proximity of a discharged weapon.
Thank you. And the blood on her hands would also be consistent. The blood on the back of the wrist would also be consistent with her hands being up, with the wrists facing the source of blood.
They don't have to be up. They could be just the way I said earlier, that she was holding the weapon with both her hands.
I'm asking you, doctor, and you're not testifying as an advocate for
No,
one
I'm
side or the
not.
other.
Absolutely
I mean, you
not.
have no vested interest in this case one way or another, correct?
That's correct.
As a matter of fact, the $45,000 or $50,000 that you're making from Mr. Spector, that wouldn't sway your opinions or conclusions in this case one way or the other, ever, would it?
I don't know where you got $50,000 from.
Well, you had $45,000 yesterday, and we're into a new day now. So I assume
Well,
that
thank
you
you
got
very
another
much.
$5,000.
I'm so grateful to be concerned with my, but please remember, as I also said to you before, at this time of my life, I really don't care.
All right. But you did not care enough to do it, for instance, pro bono.
Well, there are cases which I do pro bono.
Yeah, not this one, though.
No.
And we're worried about this.
If I did all my cases pro bono, then I would have to go on public assistance,
All right,
maybe.
well-
But I do some cases pro bono. In fact, quite a good number.
We're worried
But
about this case, doctor.
In this case, I did not have to.
All right. And what I'm asking you is, let's get back to the point. What I'm asking you is the blood on the back of her wrists would also, the other explanation would be consistent with her hands being up in a defensive posture when that shot was fired. Isn't
It
that
would be
true?
consistent with the hand being in an area where there is blood spatter.
Thank you. Assume that the defendant had blood on, well, actually, I don't even have to ask you to assume it. Let me just ask you open-ended. Or anything, any of the reports that you read or any of the crime scene photographs that you reviewed that suggested to you at any time that the defendant, while he was in the crime scene, while he was inside the foyer, had blood on his hands or was transferring blood around the crime scene?
I understand that is so.
Okay. And that comes from, and we'll make it a little faster if I can just kind of give you the question and you can tell me if you agree with it. There was blood transfer from Mr. Spector on the doorknob, correct?
That's my understanding.
There was blood transfer from Mr. Spector on the latch bolt.
On the what?
The latch bolt, it's the little part that sticks
Yes.
out of the door.
I know.
Hold it
Yes.
close. There was blood transfer from Mr. Spector on the banister, correct?
That's correct.
Are you aware that when Mr. Spector was arrested, it was noted, or did you read the reports that indicated that, in fact, when he was arrested, he had no blood on his hands?
Yes,
All right.
that's my understanding. Although there is a no, that's all.
What does that tell you about the what happened to Mr. Spector's hands between the time he had blood on them and was transferring it through the house and the time he was arrested and had no blood on his hands? What does that tell you, doctor?
Well, it tells me that the blood wasn't there. There was no blood on his hands when he was arrested.
And what does that tell you about what happened to his hands in the intervening minutes or time between when he had blood on his hands and when he didn't have blood on his hands?
Most probably that it was wiped off.
All right. You're aware that Mr. Spector retrieved a diaper at some point after Lana Clarkson was shot.
Yes,
You're aware that he wiped certain things down after Lana Clarkson was shot.
including, I don't know about certain things you say.
I'm just saying that there was, let me rephrase the question, maybe that was inartful. You're aware that Mr. Spector was responsible for transferring blood onto the diaper?
Yes. Well, I don't know. Yes, that's correct, actually.
All right. You're aware that the diaper was wetted at some point prior to the police getting there?
Yes,
All right. And the diaper included both dilute and clotted blood?
right.
All right. What does that tell you about Mr. Spector's hands insofar as being wet or staying dry the entire time?
It really doesn't tell me very much. It tells me that he probably used the diaper to wipe her, Miss Clarkson's face, and that possibly either used the diaper or used something else to wipe his hand clear of the blood that it had stained.
Doctor, you're also aware that based on certain police reports that Mr. Spector was putting his hands in and out of his pockets, correct?
Yes.
And at some point there was some transfer of Lana Clarkson's blood into one or the other of his pockets. Okay. And you're also aware that there was a 40-minute time lapse between the fatal shot being fired and when the police actually secured Mr. Spector and basically secured his hands.
I understand that there was a lapse of time. I did not know it was 40 minutes.
Okay. Let me ask you if you agree with the following statement. Fired a gun. The absence of GSR does not prove they did not. There are too many factors. Do you agree or disagree with that statement?
In and of itself, that's correct, but it has to be taken into context with other factors.
As a matter of fact, Doctor, I'm going to give you a little credit here. Where does that statement that I just read come from?
Well, it probably comes out of my book.
All right. It comes directly out of your book, correct?
I don't know if directly or indirectly, but it comes out of my book.
Page, I looked at it so many times, page 687. How do you like that for a memory?
I think that's great.
Yeah, if nothing else, Doc, you've sold another couple books in this case.
Well, I'm so pleased that I got $2.50 from each.
You need to talk to your publisher. All right. Do you know who Lucian Haig is?
I'm sorry?
Lucian Haig, H-A-A-G.
No.
He goes by Luke Haig?
No.
Okay. You're not aware that he is actually a defense expert that's been hired in this case?
Sustained. And that's stricken. The jury's admonished to disregard it.
You're aware that he is in fact a GSR expert. He's a criminalist.
I have never heard the name. I'm sorry.
I quoted you for a second. I'm going to ask you if you agree or disagree with this particular quote. Quote, a positive finding of GSR.
He has offered some opinions on GSR, and this is just a quote, whether he agrees with this, whatever, whoever it comes from, whether he agrees with a proposition. All right?
Do you agree or disagree with this quote? And it's going to sound somewhat similar to your own. Quote, a positive finding of GSR/primer residue does not distinguish a murder from a suicide. Conversely, a finding, particularly in a living individual, does not exclude a subject as having fired a gun, end quote. Do you agree or disagree generally with that statement?
Yeah, generally I agree.
Okay. Let's move on to something that you mentioned yesterday, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, Doctor. I don't think we need to spend a whole lot of time on it. You indicated that you took note of Mel, correct?
Yes, I think I did.
And you indicated to Mr. Plord under questioning on direct examination that it was in your opinion that the thumbnail was likely, or the thumbnail being broken was consistent with her pushing the trigger and the associated recoil of a weapon.
Again,
Yes.
with the thumbnail, jeez.
You can't say to any degree of medical certainty that's how that.
Say with certainty that that's how it happened, but I can say with certainty that I have seen this a fairly large number of times, although I think I've seen that with acrylic fingernails too. Yeah, but I do know that I've seen it with regular nails.
Okay, but of course, I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. You're not saying, and you weren't suggesting to Mr. Plord, oh, no, I know that nail broke on the trigger. You're not saying.
Together, then it fits into the puzzle. To say to you, just based on the fingernail, that occurred from something other than the recoil. I would have to say it's possible, but it fits like a piece of a puzzle into the remainder of this case.
It fits the theory.
It's the theory into the various items of this case.
But it also,
the various findings. You know, when you work in a puzzle, you don't know the picture, you know what the picture is until you put enough pieces together, piece that fits into that.
and of course, that piece of the puzzle, to use your metaphor, that piece of the puzzle could fit something else as well, correct? I.e., a struggle, for instance, or Lana Clarkson trying to slap the gun away, or Lana Clarkson struggling with Mr. Spector, who was armed with a gun. It would fit that as well. I mean, there's nothing inconsistent about that.
In order for it to comply with the theory that you have just advanced, you would have a lot of holes in that puzzle. Because yes, there are pieces, I've had this because I like to do puzzles. If you put it together and there's a piece that's came in there from somewhere else, it doesn't fit. You could make it fit if you push hard enough, but it doesn't fit. And in this case, you know, I've made a list here for myself yesterday after your inquiry.
I'm not asking you about a list. I'm not asking you. I mean, we can talk about that.
But
whatever.
there is,
all I'm asking you is if the nail, the broken nail,
yes,
is consistent with being broken in a struggle, for instance.
Nails break-in struggles.
Okay, so
But-
the answer is yes then.
If you insist to asking me whether a nail can break in a struggle, yes.
Thank you.
In this case, it didn't break in a struggle.
Oh, you know that.
I know that because I said to you, not just consistent, it's highly likely if a person holds a gun, there's recoil of the gun moves back and up, that a fingernail in that area where the movement occurs may break. And the fingernail really didn't break. The fingernail here is intact. I remember yesterday, or I think it was, where I said that the reason that the acrylic broke is because the acrylic has much less density, whereas the native fingernail has elasticity and would, if anything, occurs to it, would be resilient, would not, the fingernail will not break, whereas the acrylic will.
Doctor, I think we're all aware that we're talking about the acrylic portion of the fingernail.
Yes.
All right. What I'm asking you now is, in your expert forensic pathological pathologists, pathological, that was good. I thought I was going to be able to stop myself from saying that. In your expert forensic scientific opinion, you can say to a reasonable degree of medical certainty that Lana Clarkson's right acrylic nail chipped as a result of pulling the trigger on that gun. That's what your testimony is?
I'm saying that that's in view of everything I know of this. I'm not saying it's 100%, but I'm saying it's the most
I don't
likely.
agree with that.
And
And I
there
think
is
that's what
another
I said all
explanation.
along.
And that other explanation is, Dr. Spitz, that it broke in a struggle, correct?
I'm not saying to you that that's
Broken
impossible.
That's a
before
yes
she
or no
got
question,
there.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
It could have broken before she even
Now,
got
that's the
there.
physical evidence that you indicated to this jury that you base your opinion on. We've just gone over that brief. There is other physical evidence in this case that you haven't mentioned to this jury, correct?
That I have not mentioned,
Correct.
if you'd like to point it out to me.
Sure. Let's talk about that for just a second. We talked about it a little bit yesterday. There's physical evidence that Lana Clarkson was killed in Philip Spector's house, correct?
Well, we talked about that yesterday.
And we're talking about it again
There's
today.
no doubt she died in Philip Spector's house.
And in fact, there's physical evidence that it was Spector's gun that was used.
We talked about that yesterday too.
There was physical
Dude.
evidence that it was secreted in Philip Spector's bureau, correct?
It's secured or secreted. I think it's a reasonable inference. So with that in mind, you can answer.
Is that correct?
Well, I know it was in a drawer. I don't know what kind of drawer it was.
There's physical evidence in this case that the gun was in Mr. Spector's holster, correct?
Yes.
There's physical evidence in this case that the gun was loaded with Philip Spector's bullets, correct?
Yes.
There's physical evidence in this case that Lana.
Well, I don't know that that's physical evidence.
I may have overstated. There's evidence in this case that Lana Clarkson was a stranger to the house, correct?
Vegas to time, also Zoom back.
Overruled.
Vegas to time.
Well, let me say
She's never
that in
been
my
there before.
understanding, this is the first time she was there.
There's evidence in this case that she was there by Philip Spector's invitation, correct?
That's my understanding.
If she was a stranger to the house, a reasonable inference, Dr. Spitz, would be that she would have no way of knowing where a gun was placed in the home.
Well,
Zoom back's not that, it's not physical.
Well, he didn't ask if it was physical evidence. He's setting forth a series of facts from which I assume some questions are going to be asked. With that in mind, the objection is overruled.
Do you understand the question?
I understand the question, and my answer is that really it is not by no means a definitive conclusion that because she was there in his house that she not know where the gun was, did not know the area, the lay of the land. I mean, these are conclusions that maybe are so and maybe are not.
I'm asking you, is there evidence in any of the reports that you saw, is there any evidence that she knew her way around the foyer and knew that there was a gun in there? There is none, is there?
Well, but we don't. The fact that there doesn't mean that they.
Doctor, that's
Staying. Listen to the question. Just a second. Listen to the question, please, and merely answer the question if you're able to. You may ask the question again.
Thank you. Is there any evidence in any of the reports that you read that suggests or that shows that Lana Clarkson knew her way around the foyer and knew her way around the house? There's not, is there?
No, there's no evidence to that, but there's no
Thank you.
evidence that to the contrary either.
Objection, non-responsive. Move to strike the last
The latter
portion.
portion is stricken as non-responsive.
There is evidence that Mr. Spector would know where his own guns in his own house would be. Correct? Reasonable conclusion.
Reasonable conclusion, yes.
I was going to say.
There's evidence that there was only one drawer open in that foyer. correct?
Yes.
There is physical evidence in this case that Lana Clarkson was fully clothed, correct?
Objection based on.
Overruled.
At the time that
There's
she was
physical
killed.
evidence that Lana Clarkson was fully clothed.
Fully clothed at the time she was killed.
Yes.
There's physical evidence that she had her jacket on, for instance.
Yes.
There's physical evidence that she had her shoes on.
Yes.
There's physical evidence that she had her purse on her shoulder.
Yes.
There's physical evidence that she was seated in that chair that we've seen so many times now, right by the back door, correct?
Yes.
There's also physical evidence that she was immediately incapacitated. She couldn't get up and move around.
Yes.
There's physical evidence that there is blood on the doorknob, correct?
Yes.
There's evidence that that blood on the doorknob came from your client, Mr. Spector, correct?
My client?
Mr. Spector.
Yes.
There's physical evidence that there is blood on the latch bolt, yes?
On the what?
The latch bolt.
Yes.
There is evidence in your mind that that blood was put there by Mr. Spector, correct?
I would presume so, yes.
There's physical evidence that there was blood on the banister.
Yes.
The evidence in your mind is that Mr. Spector put the blood on the banister.
Probably.
When you say probably, do you mean that it's,
It wasn't there, but the likelihood is there.
well, doctor, you
There were
don't
only two people there. So,
and one of them was dead,
yes,
right?
exactly.
So blood on the banister.
Theoretically, that's true, but there were a whole bunch of people in the premises. So I doubt that any one of them put the blood there, but the possibility is there.
All right, based on your review of all the evidence in this case and the police reports that talk about them seeing the blood on the banister when they
Right.
got there and the photographs that were taken and all the documents that were done about that, reasonably, who put the blood on the
I
banister?
agree with you.
Who would that be?
I suppose Mr. Spector put it.
All right. There is physical evidence that Mr. Spector removed some of his clothing after Lana Clarkson was killed, correct?
I don't know if you call that removed some of his clothing.
Took his jacket off
He took his jacket off.
upstairs, correct?
Upstairs, yes.
Is a jacket clothing?
Well, yes, it's clothing, but when you say he took his clothing off, that sounds ominous.
I didn't say he took his clothing off. I asked you, is there evidence that he took some of his clothing off? Or
Well,
removed some of his
exactly. That
clothing?
sounds ominous to me. Maybe I'm approved, I don't know, but not disproved.
Did,
But he took his jacket off. That's a different, I would not classify that as taking his clothing off.
classified as taking some of his clothing off, correct?
Okay.
There is physical evidence that a diaper was retrieved after Lana Clarkson was killed, correct?
Yes.
Who retrieved the diaper?
Who retrieved it?
Who retrieved it? Who got the diaper and began to use it in the house?
I suppose Mr. Spector.
You're aware that the diaper was wetted. We talked about that just a second ago, correct?
Yes.
That's physical evidence, correct?
Well, that's the evidence.
All right. And in fact, it would have been wetted by Ms. Spector, correct?
Yes.
There's physical evidence that Clarkson's face was wiped, correct?
Yes.
There's physical evidence that had blood on it, correct?
They got blood on it, yes.
There's physical evidence that the blood on the gun was moved or removed, correct?
I don't know about that.
There's physical evidence that there was blood in Mr. Spector's pocket, correct?
Yes.
And you're also aware of evidence that during the 40 minutes between the time the gunshot went off, but between the time Lana Clarkson was killed and by the time the police got there, during that 40-minute or however long that was, I think you said you weren't aware of that, but assume from purposes of my question that it was 40 minutes, that Mr. Spector never called for help. You're aware of that, correct?
I don't know. I don't know about that.
Did you consider that fact in coming to your opinions and conclusions?
No, I did not consider that.
All right. You were never told that by the defense, I'm assuming. Opinions and conclusions in this case that you're providing subject to the information that you've been provided by the defense.
And that is reams of information.
All right. But you're not sure if you were ever told that Mr. Spector never called an ambulance, never called for help, never called the police, never dialed 911. You don't know if you were ever told that.
I don't remember if I was told that or not, but I can only say it. I almost think that I've read that in the records.
All right. And you're aware, of course, we talked about this just a second ago, that Mr. Spector had Lana Clarkson's blood in his pocket or pockets.
In
correct?
his one pocket, yes.
Okay. And you're also aware that Mr. Spector had blood on his jacket?
On the left side of his white jacket.
Well, and on a couple of the sleeves.
And on the wipes. There were wipes on the sleeves.
There was blood on his jacket, correct?
There was blood on his jacket. Lana Clarkson.
And there's also evidence that Mr. Spector made a statement directly after the gunshot was fired. You're aware of that, correct?
Yes.
And that statement was what?
He made a statement to the Alhambra police.
He made a statement to the driver.
To the driver, yes.
Correct. Directly after the shot was fired.
Oh, directly, that statement, yes.
Do you know what that statement was?
That statement was something to the effect, I think I killed somebody.
All right. Those are items of evidence that you didn't mention to the jurors when you said you considered the physical evidence in this case and made a determination and a conclusion that Lana Clarkson pulled the trigger, not Philip Spector, correct?
Well, I considered as evidence those items that pertain directly to the shooting and not statements that were made. Because, first of all, statements are subject to variation. I've seen a lot of, in fact, I've just testified in a case where 4 people have made statements, all of which were wrong in regards to a rape homicide.
I'm asking you about all of the things that I just went over, that litany of things. All I'm asking you, doctor, you didn't mention any of those things when you told this jury what you based your opinion on. Is that right or wrong?
We talked about physical evidence.
That is true, and it's the way the question is being phrased.
Sure, I'll rephrase it. In the physical evidence that you relied on, income that I just talked about or asked you about, you didn't mention any of those things in your list of physical evidence that you relied on to this jury, correct?
That is correct.
All right.
And the reason I did not do that is because there are the facts there. The fact that she is in his house does not change my opinion. None of these items change my opinion or are even able to somewhat sway my opinion.
That's actually a good question. Does anything that I just talked about have any impact on your opinion whatsoever?
No, they don't.
Okay. Did you consider, or do you think it's important to consider, because you've mentioned 2 or 3 times in passing that there were only 2 people in the room, correct?
There were only 2 people in the room, both able to pull the trigger, and one did and one didn't.
Correct. So in light of that, Dr. Spitz, it would obviously be very important for a forensic pathologist in coming to a conclusion or opinion, maintain a level of objectivity and independence about what happened inside for you, correct?
If you look at all the facts objectively, Mr. Jackson, I think you would.
Your thoughts about what I would do are absolutely irrelevant. I'm not asking you what you think I would do, all right? I'm asking you a simple question. Is it important?
Yes, Your Honor, to be
Overruled.
Is it important, Dr. Spitz, for a forensic pathologist, an independent, objective forensic pathologist, to look at all the evidence before coming to a conclusion, just in general?
I believe that that's correct.
Given the fact that there were 2 people in the room, you looked at Lana Clarkson's background, or at least part of her background, in coming to your conclusions, correct?
Yes.
And that background was provided to you by the defense, is that right?
Yes.
Did you, in fact, look at Mr. Spector's background and his history in coming to your conclusions and
I'm
opinions?
aware that, and we discussed that yesterday, I'm aware that there were, in the past, some number of years preceding that, there were some episodes which I classified yesterday as unusual and maybe stupid. that reflect on this case? Because that happened, I should immediately jump to the conclusion, in the presence or absence of the physical findings, the scientific findings in this case, that there is a continuation of a previous set of series of incidences, that this is one just like the one in the past. I cannot do that.
Let's talk about those incidences for a second. Are you aware that in July 19?
Okay. We're going to stop there. What's 43:54 is the timestamp? I will be glad when we're done with him. What did they do? Did they just say, let's find the most ridiculous experts that just think everything they say is perfect and they know everything in the world? Did they like purposely try to find those kind of experts for these trials? For this trial? I mean, DeMaio and this guy is just like, my head wants to explode. What is wrong with these men? Like, I don't get that vibe from a lot of the experts in the Karen Reed trial. Russell and La Posada and Wolf and Rentschler. They're just nice, sweet people that know their stuff. They don't act like that they know everything and their word is gospel. What is wrong with these guys? These two men, DeMaio and this guy, they're driving me crazy. I will be so glad when we're done. And these two guys have the longest testimonies, I think, of anybody in the entire trial. Days and days and days on the stand. Oh my God. All right, guys. That's it for Phil Spector for today. If you're not going to join us for Karen Reed, I will see you again in the morning. If you are, I will see you in a few minutes. So that's it for today. Be kind to people, love your family, and Jesus loves you, and so do I. Bye, guys.